Hey everybody, I'm John Gerzema from the Harris Poll, and we're going to go through and look at the latest wave of research covering insights and intent in the second quarter, looking out at summer travel. We're going to go through sort of a rough framework here real quickly of a number of different topics that I'll kind of get into as we get into this. Important to know this is an online survey that we conducted on behalf of OAAA together with the Harris Poll on April 16th and 19th. So let's get into it and look a little bit about sort of the macro things that we're seeing in our data. We have been tracking on a weekly basis all things COVID in terms of American sentiment. And the most important thing to kind of look at this trended chart is that with the rise in vaccinations, with the reopening of the economy, you're starting to see a lot of optimism build, and sort of in an inverse way, the fear is now declining. You can see that fear is sort of leveling off, a slight increase in a couple of small places, but overall the trend lines are looking really positive for the sense of American confidence. Most notably is that red line at the bottom. You can see sort of in early January, half of America, nearly at 47%, felt the vaccine rollout was too slow. That's now down to 20%. So people are feeling happy given the fact that we are moving forward. And we see that in our data. We see a rise in confidence that people say that they will get the vaccine, which is now trending at 75%. They approve of the vaccine rollout, as we just discussed. This is a really, I think, an interesting question. We've been asking all throughout COVID, do you agree or disagree, believing that the worst is behind us? 33% of Americans believe that back at the end of the year. That's now up to 67%. So again, building optimism is sort of the bedrock of what we're going to talk about here shortly. We do have outstanding about 75% of Americans now roughly that say that they will take the vaccine. That's good news, but there are 25%, almost about a quarter of Americans that still remain undecided. Sort of within that group are sort of three camps. There are people that are going to wait and see. There are those that are not going to take it at all. And then there are also those that are going to say that they're going to take it whenever they get around to it. So there are some procrastinators in there. Those are the low-hanging fruit for conversion. Important on the right-hand side, you can see that demographics across the board have started to decline, including among some really important demographics in America, including Black Americans that had been traditionally hesitant. And those numbers are also coming down. So good news across the board there. You know, I think what's going to take some time, though, is really letting the entire process of vaccination, hopefully getting to some level approaching herd immunity, is going to really stimulate the marketplace. And that's going to be a function of consumers feeling confident and safe that they can get out there. So pay attention to that orange bar at the bottom. This is an ongoing tracking of those who are comfortable, neutral, or in the case of the orange, not comfortable. And you can still see, for example, in some things that are germane to our industry, 45% of Americans not comfortable flying on a plane yet, 50%, half of America not ready to take in a concert or a Broadway show, or take in public transportation or socializing with people you don't know at a bar at 47%. So we're not quite there, but we're certainly headed in the right direction. What's really important, though, is that this confidence is a function of consumer confidence, and we are seeing what we call revenge spending really picking up across the board as we look at ahead into the second quarter. So we see things, important again to our industry, things that are about, getting back out there, right? Hotel stays, plane tickets, shoes or footwear, smartphones, going out clothes. Those are all sort of, clothing to replace sweatpants and t-shirts. These are all things that are all completely tied to the outdoor versus inside economy. And that is, again, a hopeful sign. And then when we look at overall sort of comfort in terms of it's layered on top of vaccine rates, you see some sort of interesting dynamics here. Now let's just focus, there's a lot in this chart, but what we're looking at are bars of different answers of when people are comfortable doing certain things. Green is now on the far end, in red is after the country has reached herd immunity, and in between are a range of different questions about when you would be comfortable doing something after the first dose or the second dose or 2 weeks after, as the CDC advises us to do so. And what we see, particularly with airplanes and sporting events, let's just take a look at those two. We have within there about a quarter of Americans to a third that are really going to hold back. So I think the way we think about this really is, post-COVID early adopters. They're going to be early adopters that are going to move out. You can see that in the green. 17% are ready this month. Right now, in fact, to get on an airplane or to go to a concert at 13%. And then you see how those kind of follow along. So if we think about it in that context and we layer on top of that demographics, we start to get a clearer picture of who we need to be targeting as we're thinking about our messaging as people are going out and about. So we also see a highly contentious issue, which is vaccine passports. What is interesting when you talk to the American public, they're largely supportive of them, even though they are concerned about, their invasion of privacy. So we can see what roughly happens on the left-hand side is that, 2/3 of Americans roughly support, having a vaccine passport to get on a plane or to get into the Madison Square Garden, for example. But when you're getting more micro and personal and everyday, there's more resistance. Only 46% believe that that's the case for entering a store. And on the right-hand side, you can see strong degree, the majority of Americans at 60% are concerned of a vaccine passport having an impact on violating our personal privacy. So with that, in fact, let's look then at summer travel. And what we can start to see is that the car, even as we reach toward recovery, the car is still the place that Americans feel is the most safe in terms of overall travel. And that's good news. And you can kind of see, bike shares are after that. You have bike shares that are actually even feeling more safe than commercial flights. Now, clearly some of that will change, including taxis and other aspects of public transportation and trains as vaccine rates rise. But again, the car is really the way to go. And with that, however, though, is a boosting, burgeoning, comfort in flying. When we look at the top two box asking this question, now that COVID vaccine has been administered to the general public, how comfortable are you flying on a plane relative to earlier in the pandemic? And we can see, 41% somewhat more comfortable, but 23%, almost a quarter, much more comfortable, getting us to almost 2/3 of Americans feeling comfortable to get back out and travel, including young folks, which we see in all of our data are sort of at the leading edge of the more bullish in terms of getting back out there. And in fact, when we see the data, consumers are twice as likely to fly for summer travel than they were for 2020 holidays. So we went back and looked at our data at the end of last year during Christmas, Thanksgiving, Kwanzaa, all these different holidays. And what we started to see was a significant uptick, again, to the mode of transportation that they were going to take and when they were going to take it, meaning that the summer is looking more bullish. And also, the April 19th eligibility for vaccines is really becoming a confidence boost for summer travel. We asked how much is the vaccination process actually, in the fact that most states say that they're meeting or already met this timeline, for being eligible to receive the vaccine. That opening up of that access has had a high correlation in terms of likelihood to travel. Again, 63% saying that they're more likely, again, younger Americans sort of leading the way. Half of Americans, have similarly increased their summer travel plans pre-COVID. Again, we see more emphasis of American mobility getting back out there. When we look at those who say their travel patterns will be as similar as they were to pre-COVID or actually increasing the number of trips and distance compared to before the pandemic, we have over half of Americans saying that is the case as of this latest wave of data. So more travel on the horizon in terms of Americans. And in fact, they're really going to get out there. 4 in 10, 40% are saying that they aim to take 2 weeks plus for summer vacation. I think this is really significant, again, to our industry and as we think about outdoor, because you really are going to have prolonged sort of traditional American vacations as opposed to what we saw in our data, more targeted, more closer to home, sort of more tactical ways in which Americans navigated around the concern of safety. So the degree of feeling normalcy is going to have a lot more mobile Americans out there for a longer period of time being exposed to outdoor advertising. Now also, weekend getaways, extended stays, resort vacations are really what top the list as we look ahead into our data. So thinking ahead, how likely are you to take the following kinds? And we can see, 68% a weekend getaway to a different city or town. Millennials pop on that. Extended stay with family or friends. All throughout our Harris data, it's all been about missing family and reconnecting with friends. And that's at 2/3 of Americans. And then the majority at 55% going to a vacation, resort, beach, or elsewhere. So a lot of mobility in those areas. And importantly, more than half will be traveling outside their region this summer. I think this is significant. You can kind of look at this two ways, right? One is 56% of Americans, as it says on the slide, will be traveling sort of over 200 miles nationally. But there's also interesting pockets of micro travel. So when you look at that sort of 50 to 200, you get yourself nicely into the range of, almost 42% of trip occasions, even double among younger people that are going to be in that local regional range. So again, a lot of travel happening on sort of both ends of the spectrum. And this summer, most travelers are going to go back to hotels or they'll stay with families. And so we asked for accommodations. 58% hotels is where they're going to travel to this summer. 51% family or friend's house, followed by resorts, Airbnb style rentals, and then camping at 20%. Boomers are most looking forward to reconnecting. Gen X is searching for relaxation and rest. Interestingly here, this is probably fit with the demos. The boomers are more likely to be heading toward grandparents or older kids out of the house, whereas Gen X still have sort of kids in high school and junior high. And so they're really looking for a different type of vacation in terms of those pop. And again, that's why this is so important, how we can overlay our messaging, right, against these demo targets to understand their mindsets. In addition to the types of places that they're going to visit, can help us be really targeted to deliver the right message to the right audience at the right time. Now, consumers are most likely to visit beaches, parks, and museums, and this is where we get even more granular. I think this is a really, really cool chart here for thinking about marketers and media planning. So we asked the question, how likely are you to visit each of the following this summer, assuming local public health guidelines deem it to be safe? And so we asked, and this gives you a sample, being the blue side, somewhat or very likely, you can see 69% say that they're going to visit national parks. That pops against Gen X at 78%. There's museums at 50%. That pops on the West Coast. Movie theaters, 49%. Look how that pops in urban environments of cities over a million people at 62%. So you kind of get the story here. It's again, I think we can be very highly geo-targeted with demo overlays to really understand the types of activities as well as the types of regions and areas geographically that people are interested in to help us really tighten up our messaging. I thought this is a kind of fun chart that when we do the handout, hopefully you can kind of dig deeper into. So let's look at out-of-home relevance. Also important, out-of-home is driving awareness for the reconnection of our economy. Well, what's coming back? It's baseball games. It is the playoffs. It is concerts. It's fairs and festivals. These things are all starting to tick back up. And so we see that leading sort of awareness that's coming out of the question about which events you publicly typically become aware of due to billboards, outdoor video screens, etc. You can see fairs followed by concerts, followed by new movie releases, sporting events, local festivals, and block parties. So, this has really replaced traditional local newspapers, right? How important out-of-home is for getting that just-in-time information of these breaking events that are coming into your region and into your town. And it's really important, again, from a segmentation standpoint, to younger Americans. Younger Americans being more socialized, more focused on music and concerts and events and theaters. You can see that here, how they pop. Gen Z is in the orange, and they're really interested in concerts. They're also interested in fairs. But across the board, for all Americans, it's fairs, concerts, new movie releases, sporting events are really the types of things that they become aware of due to outdoor advertising and billboards. Most importantly, however, too, is that Americans continue to notice out of home more than pre-COVID, more than before. And so 3/5 of urbanites are taking more notice of out of home. Again, we asked this question, would you say you were noticing billboards, outdoor video screens, posters, signage, other outdoor ads now more than before the pandemic began? And you can see this tracking in our data from September to January to April. It's really holding steady at 41%, sort of top two box, saying yes, slightly more, or yes, much more. And again, you can see how that really jumps among urban audiences in America, again, suggesting that the places that have been really hard hit rather by COVID are starting to sort of open back up, and that is stimulating a lot of interest and awareness for outdoor advertising. So outdoor advertising has also driven, importantly, over half of consumers to search online about advertisers. I think this is fascinating because it's not just simply about awareness upper funnel. This is actually out of home as a driver of engagement and actually the start of conversion. So we asked this question, in the past year, have you done any of the following activities on your smartphone, mobile device after seeing billboards, outdoor video screens, posters, signage, and other outdoor ads? And look at this. Half of all Americans, 49%, said they used online search to look up information about an advertiser as a result of being exposed to an outdoor ad. And again, that bumps up significantly, almost 11 points among urban audiences. We also said, they told us rather that they've engaged in other activities on their smartphone after seeing a billboard. That's about 1/3 of Americans. A third also said they accessed a coupon or discount code, and even 1/3 said that they visited an advertiser's website or took a photo of an ad. And I think what's really exciting about this is that you're seeing the maturation, the digital acceleration of all Americans. We have a lot of Harris Poll data that shows us this, that during the pandemic, Americans became highly comfortable, whether it was using a QR code on a menu in a restaurant or sort of, being exposed to using chatbots and other aspects to replace the in-store experience. They became very adept quickly with their digital prowess, and that's showing up in these kinds of statistics. So don't underestimate Americans, especially all Americans. This was across the board. Even boomers were more tech focused with their smartphones and with their laptops. So with that, thinking specifically about mobile phones, there's a big opportunity here to be creating conversion through QR codes, to be doing other contests and incentives and ways of inspiring consumers to get deals or to access content in a way that helps them drive toward the funnel, toward a sale. And then, great example of that is the restaurant industry. In our data, the restaurant industry was the top most digitally satisfied experience among Americans in terms of which sector had done the best job during the pandemic. And if you think about it, restaurants had to be scrappy, they had to hustle, they had to do a whole bunch of things to overcome a number of physical limitations. And again, that shows up in the outdoor advertising. We asked for those billboards, video screens, signage, which, if any, did you see that were most useful to you? And again, the general public, including in urban societies, urban markets rather, at 1 million plus in the yellow, you can see that 37% said the restaurants are doing a great job. Other things that were super important during the pandemic were obviously COVID-related information, public safety, weather, and again, upcoming public events. So local dining, telling me, keeping me abreast of the reopening of the marketplace, in the industries and what's going on. And I think also out-of-home has a huge role to play in helping us get our muscle memory back as we start to get back out there, because this will take some time. There will be some conversion as people are moving back into their physical versus their sheltered lives. And so in that context, it's really important to understand how completely digital burned out we all are. I'm sure you're sick of seeing people on Zoom screens, and we see that in our data. 2/3 of Americans roughly continue to experience digital burnout. And we see that. We ask these questions on an agree-disagree basis. The strongly agree being in the blue. Look how high these numbers are. I try to get out of the house as often as I can, even if it's just for a walk across town or around town, rather. 78% of Americans. 7 out of 10 also say, I wish there were more outdoor dining options. I've been trying to find safe outdoor activities at 68%. These days, I spend so much time looking at screens that I often tune out digital ads. 2/3 of Americans, roughly at 63%. And at this point in the pandemic, I'm trying to spend less time on my phone or computer, again at 45%. So as we look ahead, this is a summer comeback. This is a sense where most Americans will be taking some kind of trip this summer, at least 2 weeks. We continue to see awareness of outdoor advertising rising high, staying relevant, and also really doing a great job of keeping up to date and giving us information with those public events, those late-breaking new sporting events and concerts and festivals and fairs. And also importantly, it's becoming a more lower funnel medium. It's driving consumers to seek more information about advertisers. When you have half of consumers saying that they're using out-of-home that way, that suggests that it's doing a great job. Again, a function of this sort of analog and hybrid digital world that we live in, where they're using their smartphones to act on that information to start to drive information and going directly to brands. And then lastly, restaurants' COVID information was really what was driving a lot of notice for consumers. So there you have it. I think our implications and recommendations will leave for you to read, but at a really high level, we are really optimistic about summer travel and the role that out-of-home can play. We think that consumers, especially in major urban areas, are typically becoming more aware of these public events and fairs and concerts. So with all this spending that we think is going to shift from objects to experiences, this is really important. We're going to get back out and really focus on concerts and sporting events and doing things with larger groups and reconnecting with our family. Think about out-of-home kind of in that context. And there's definitely a lot of room for brands to use out-of-home to drive even higher levels of digital engagement, as we just have said. And here's a few recommendations you can kind of read through as you download the deck. So that's a quick summary of our work. We're really excited to be continuing to work between the Harris Poll and OAAA, and we wish you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thanks.